And so we evaluate time based on our circumstances. But by and large, we look at it and we can say with a fair amount of certainty that there are 365 days in a year. And this feels all well and good, except that it wasn't always that way. And so I'm going to ice comments for just a little bit. And I do want to catch questions, so please don't hesitate. But let's get into the heart of the matter today. Couple of things that I want you to know. No, all of it I want you to know, but to set us up. How did the Romans understand time? How did they consider their day-to-day and organize their lives? As we look at this, let's start at the very beginning. Romulus. Now, Romulus, we know, was the first king of Rome. And we know the legends, we know the stories. Those feel wonderful. Romulus initiated a 10-month calendar. Under the Romulan calendar, and Trekkies, it's a different Romulan calendar that I'm talking about. I am not in reference to that of the Romulans. Under the Romulan calendar, the calendar which King Romulus initiated, we had 10 months. The year began in March and went to December.
Now, wasn't there no Julius or July or?
I'm about to answer that very question. I'm so glad you're there. I want you to notice something very interesting about this word right here. December.
Oh my gosh, 10.
It was the 10th month. So, November earns its name because it was originally month number 9. October, September, now August. Well, that was changed much later, as was July. Originally, both of those months were numbered as well. Now, we get this base and we think, all right, March to December, that's cool. He just fit 365 days. Wrong. Fascinatingly enough, under the Romulan calendar, there were 61 days of winter that didn't belong to any month. They weren't in any way tabulated inside the main constructs. Now, how practical would this be? I'm seeing some heads. You're like, why would he do that? All right, so thankfully, things changed pretty quick because we had the second king, Numa Pompilius. Now, Numa was a big picture guy. Romulus had been very military organized. Interestingly enough, we know the month March is named for whom?
Marcus. I don't know, it sounds...
Marcus Aurelius?
No, it's actually not. Think more in terms of deity. Mars. March was the beginning of the Romulan year. Romulus was a military king. He was a wartime king. March is when wars began. March 15th, to be precise, was the date when the gates were open and the military campaign was officially underway for the year. Romulus, as such, based his year starting off of that. Numa was a peacetime king. And in fact, it is from Numa that we get some of the earliest codification of Roman religion, philosophy, and I will use the term superstition, although they would not have referred to it as such. Numa, very different approach, and Numa realizes quickly this is very confusing. I mean, 61 days that you can't account for, so Numa adds 2 new months. So under Numa's revisions, we get the 12-month calendar. Now we can ballpark this. Let's just say this happens around circa 700 BC. And should you prefer the more archaeological label BCE. Now, at this point, they're looking at time, they're thinking, this is all well and good. How are they counting years? Because we count years based off of what? What is our measure?
Every 365 days with the occasional leap year.
Well, not counting by days. How do we label a year? So from what is our reference point? Yes, ma'am.
After Christ's death, AD.
Understand. So before Christ, after Christ, or before Common Era, Common Era. Now, Rome didn't have that frame of reference. Rather, from the earliest Roman calendars, years were considered AUC, which means ab urbe condita, from the founding of the city. So to the Roman calendar, year, what we would know as 753 BC, is year 0 under the Roman calendar. Which means if I were to say year 10 AUC, I'm talking about what year in the way we understand it?
763 BC.
Ah, 43.
Sorry.
Because it works up. And because it's BC, we have to think through that. If I talk about year 753 AUC, I'm referring to what year on our calendar? Check with your neighbor. What are you thinking?
0?
753 AUC. Did I though? All right, so they counted AUC year 1. This is year 0 AUC. And so, if we're counting year 753 AUC, we're where? No. Where are we?
Year 1.
We're at the start of the time of the AD timeline. Because this is the equivalent. And so, interesting, fascinating, but we don't count years like this anymore. And maybe some of you are thankful for that. Maybe you're thankful that we don't count years based off of AUC. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, the next big change to the calendar came under Julius Caesar. And Caesar pretty much organized, by way of synopsis, he helped organize the business calendar. How does the governing calendar work? Still using the 12-month model. We know about, we can tell exactly when he made his. He did this, slight adjustments to calendar, in 46 BCE. And we know that from the historian Suetonius. S-U or S-U-E, I always forget. S-U-E. Suetonius tells us this. So we have a very accurate understanding of when he started to set up what would become the calendar of the Roman Empire. And then much later on, we get the changes made by Pope Gregory to our current calendar, which happened in AD 1582. Pope Gregory 13. Pope Gregory the 13th, year 1582, he makes the changes to the calendar that we know today. Now, you look at it and you think,
What does that say in the parentheses?
Suetonius. He's the historian who documents this era of Caesar's reign. Yes, sir.
Isn't Gregory the 13th the guy who went, I'm just going to take these days and go.
I feel like that's a mild oversimplification, but
It goes from the 12th, I think, to the 15th.
the way the calendar was structured, from the Julian calendar up until the modern calendar, the Julian calendar had an extra 11 days than what we have in our calendar. And so the year was 11 days longer, which over time had pretty drastic impact. Years are nice, but come on, it's easy to talk about a year, right? I mean, we are in 2018, and we're going to be here for the next 12 months. So what does day-to-day life look like? Life on the ground. This is where things get a little fun, I'll try to say. May I erase this? So the Roman calendar, in the earliest version, had 4 months that had 31 days in them. 4 months. We had March, May, July, and October. Under the Romulan and Newman calendar, 4 months with 31 days. These 4 months are very important because out of these original Roman calendars, these 2 months were very special. You see, the Roman calendar was put not in terms of framework to the day you were on per se, but rather it looked to the next great civic festival. So, the first of every month was called calends, from which we get a word that we use on a regular basis. The first of every month is labeled calends. The calends was a day sacred to Juno. There were festivals held in her honor at the beginning of every month.
Hera.
Now,
Hey, I need to.
but hey, we speak the language, so we're good. Yeah. Now, we look at this and we realize the schedule that's set up is in part civic, in part religious. It's organized around those festivals. Now, here's where these 4 months become very important. In one of these 4 months, the next festival day was called Nones. In one of these 4 months, Nones would have been held on the 7th. But outside of these 4 months, so in fact maybe let's put 1 cal 7 non. Outside of these 4 months, Nones was held on the 5th. And our final festival, beware the Ides of March. Not just a famous Shakespearean line, but a mark of the festival surrounding at which he died. Ides. Now, in these 4 months, the Ides, abbreviated ID, would be on the 15th. In the other months, Ides fell on the 13th. So, if we are in January under the ancient calendar, on what day would calends have been?
New Year's.
It wouldn't have been a day.
On what grounds?
January wasn't in that calendar.
Oh, Numa added it. So we're talking now like with the Newman added. But what day would calends have been in January? 1st. What day would Nones have been? 5th. Okay? What about, let's say we're in October. What day is the Ides? The Ides of October. 15th. What about, in fact, write this one out. The Ides of August is what day? The Ides of August. Oh, because under the ancient calendar, only these 4 had this come into play. So then begs the question, well, what do you do with August 2nd? here's what happened. And pay very close attention. I want you to
What
catch
was the answer
this.
to the Ides of August?
What is the answer to the Ides of August?
13.
Do you agree? Yeah.
This is a trick question.
Now, as we look, this is where things get mildly squirrely. After the festival, dates were reckoned in regard to how many days before the next festival. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, that we are in November. Hypothetically, November. November 1st is Calends. November 2nd, what we understand to be November 2nd, we know that in November, under the ancient calendar, Nones is on the 5th. November 2nd would be Ante Diem, or shorthand, AD. The Romans used AD before we did. Ante Diem for non-November. The setup before the day of Nones, 4 days, is the construct. Before the day of Nones, 4 days.
Why not 3?
Because they counted the day of, like they counted the day they were on, like they were counting it as
So they would have
one up.
counted 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 9.
So, yes, exactly. So, the 3rd of November, we would say, okay, 3rd is AD 3 non. 4th, I'm not putting my lines on. 4th, the day before a festival, had a special name. And this is actually going to help clarify your question, and more clearly answer your question. The day before a festival was called Prédier, or PD, and then whatever the festival is. So Prédier Nones is the day before Nones. It's considered the 2 marker. And then the day of, the 5th, would be Nones. Yes, sir.
So for the second day,
Mhm.
wouldn't it be 3 days instead of 4 days?
Ah, and that's where this very question, coming back around to it. We look at it and it makes sense, yes, but they're counting Nones, the 5th, which we're going to label non-November. The 5th, Nones, they're counting the festival as day 1 itself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, counting back. But the second, the day before, day 2 in this series, Ante Diem Duo, had a special name, Prédier. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, taking this, we know that in November, in our hypothetical scenario, the Ides is 13. So 13 is November. What would the 12th be? How would we label it? Prédier Idus. And we would simply say PD, ID, no, because shorthanding was very common as you read the literature about this era. And then the 11th would be what? Ante Diem Tres. Idus November. Now, if, hypothetically speaking, you wanted to, you could work your way back, yes? It's most interesting for us coming to it from a 21st century perspective. The framework that makes this easiest to understand is find the festival, work backwards. But then that begs the question, well, August, November's got more than 13 days in it. But Ides is the final festival of the month. So what do?
You count down to Kellen's.
You count down to Calends. So at this point, you're going to think anytime after, you're going to say, okay, the next festival, the next festival is Cal Decem. So November 30th would be PD Cal Decem for Calends.
So they had 3 festivals every single month.
3 festivals every month. And these organized their understanding of time in relation of day to day. So here's what I'd like you to do, and jot it down, make some notes on this. From this framework, what day would have been the 15th of November? Work back, knowing what you know. 29th would be what? How would we label the 29th of November? Second?
Yeah, the duo, whatever. Duo, noum.
Is it the second then? Remember how our festivals are lined up. Tridie, the next number up from Tridie would be 3. So for the 29th, we would say AD 3 Cal Dec. 3 days before the Calends of December. And realizing in this construct that Calends, the festival, is counted as day 1. You have to count that in, because if you don't count this, this is when, like, your numbering is off. This is 1, this is 2. You have to count the festival as day 1. So then the 15th of November, who can work it out? Work it back. 17? The 17th. AD, we would label the 15th as AD Cal Dec. Okay. I have just thrown something pretty heavy at you. There's a lot to process here. So here's what I'd like to ask. 2 questions, first of all. Do you wish we counted time like this?
No.
No, that's a universal negative.
I'm so glad we don't.
What?
It wouldn't, although, to say to that, we wouldn't really like this system because we've grown up with the system that we use.
That's fair, and we have to consider the cultural structures within which we are naturalized, and within which the Romans were naturalized. To them, this was perfectly normal and perfectly logical. Yes, ma'am.
You might be happier because it'd be like, oh, it's only this many days until the next festival.
Now, we don't have anything in our society that we count down to. Like, if I were to ask, you guys aren't counting down to spring break. I know no one in here can give me the day count to spring break.
Can you tell me what
I
spring break is?
Or to Christmas. Yeah. Every year, and you guys see this, every year, the day after Christmas, you'll start to see things online about, wow, it's 364 days until Christmas and people already have their lights up. Ha 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 ha, okay. Ha ha ha, thank you. I'll take the pity laugh. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Take a minute. Breathe. Talk through this with a neighbor. Make sure you get it collectively. Ask each other questions, but take 1 minute, and I want you to talk about the Roman calendar with your neighbor.
Is
Begin.
the Roman calendar very complicated? Yeah.
May I erase this? Huh?
Yeah, I don't either.
46 days, so thank you.
I think.
That actually sounds about right. Okay, May I erase this? Are we good here?
Yes, please.
Oh no, if I'm erasing it, it's because I need more space to put more things up there.
Yeah.
We're not done.
Did you get
That's funny.
lab?
Yes, sir.
Can I answer a spit question?
No.
Okay, so what's
I don't want you to miss anything. Can you make it?
Of course, I can run.
Well, no. Like, can you wait till the end of class? We've got like
15.
the clock's ticking. So
15 minutes. Okay.
if you can make it, stay with me. If you're about to explode, go do your thing. All right. What questions do you have? As you've been talking with your friends about the Roman calendar, because I know you all stayed very much 100% on topic during this break, what questions do you have? Yes, sir.
Can you buy a calendar anywhere that's like this? That'd be cool.
You cannot buy, however, there are prints that you can find, and at one point, I don't think I've got it anymore, because I had a computer crash, the computer that was on crashed. I had written a program that converted our time to theirs using dates and AUC.
it exploded?
The computer, the hard
That's
drive crashed, and things went very bad very fast. And so,
I'll make you another one.
huh?
I'll make you another one.
Be my guest. I figure I'll get around to it when I've got time to sit and work on a project like that. But that is not today. Now, here's what I'm going to ask. Oh, before I start asking, maybe I should start telling. Under the Roman calendar, the Romulan and the Newman, there were 4 months with 31 days. Time gets very confusing as we start converting dates backwards, because the Julian calendar set things a little closer to what we know today. And under the Julian calendar, you had more months with 31 days than you had under the Romulan or the Newman calendar. Now, that being said, when you're converting back, we have to be very careful, because if you're reading a Roman history and it says on the seventh day before Calends of August, that's going to mean something potentially different than what it would mean if we talked about it today, because we have to factor in those changes made under the Julian calendar. So here's where the Julian calendar helps simplify things. Here's where the Julian calendar helps to simplify things, and where things come into application for us. Under the modern calendar, if a month has 31 days, the festivals are 1, 5, and 7. Else, meaning the month doesn't have 31 days in it under our calendar, the festivals would be considered, 1, 7, 15.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what?
That's on me. I was condensing into 1, 7, 15. Else, 1, 5, 13. Brain was working a little faster than my hands. Now, this being said, were we to try and calculate things in our timeline based on, or in the fashion of the Roman calendar, we have to consider this. So, months with 31 days, what do we have? How many? In our calendar.
12.
12 months with 31 days?
Well, it's sparsely.
See, 8. Let's name them. What months have 31 days?
January, March, May, July. No.
August. Good.
October,
December.
7 months with 31 days. So there are 7 months where we are using this 1, 7, 15 sequence. In the others, we're using the 1, 5, 13. So here's what I'm going to ask. We know that Christmas is the 25th of December. How would we reconcile this or write this in Roman nomenclature? What's the next festival that we're looking to? First, figure that out. Calends of January. So we're going to say, well, our festival, which you always end with the festival, Kalyan. Now, how many days before?
6.
Check it.
Well,
Write it out. Think through. We know that January 31st would be labeled what? What?
January 31st?
Or December 31st, excuse me. December 31st would be Previe, which means December 29th would be AD how many? 3. So we work backwards. 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, 25. Our Christmas would be understood under the Septem Kal January. Kal January. Let's try another.
That one should
okay.
be a holiday.
Let's try another. Halloween. We know, go ahead, write it out. In your notes, Halloween, don't say it, write it. It's too easy if you say it.
Oh, what was the term they used before it? Or something?
What day is Halloween?
What day is Halloween?
This is Halloween.
I'm glad someone else is doing it too, because it just started playing in my head. The worst. Earworms are a fascinating thing, but that's a completely different line of research that I'm into. We'll talk about it in a minute.
Worst of what?
Leave it alone. Just
Something
stop.
bad.
Okay, what do we have? We know that Halloween is the 31st of October. How would we label it under the Roman system? What is the next festival? Let me ask you that question. Calends, which is November 1st. Now, are there any days between the 31st and the 1st? November or October to November? No. So it's the day before, but we don't label that as PD. It's Previe. How? No. Previe, how no. Let's try one more collectively. One more collectively and quickly. What day, under our calendar, we look at April 2nd. What would it be?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
How about just like looking to use the restroom?
April 2nd, what day is the festival that we're looking to? We're looking to Nones on the 5th. So Nones, Previe is the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd. Ante? Non April. Now, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do today. Someone at your table, take out one sheet of paper, rip it apart into as many pieces as you need for everyone at your table, because your ticket out of this room today is to write your birthday in both our nomenclature and theirs. Your birthday in both nomenclatures. Please apply your name to this. And as you are finished, we have to reset this room.